Hey everyone, it's summertime. I'm your host, Summer Hill, and today I'm here with my cousin, or something like that, Jonquilyn Hill. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to chat with you. Okay, so I have to tell you some things about us that's like really, really weird because we're kind of similar.
Yes, because I've been trying. I was like, Hill. Are we
Hill,
family?
last names are Hill, both went to Howard and both work for NPR.
Wait, you were. Oh my
I'm following in your
gosh. Oh
footsteps.
my gosh.
I'm there now.
Listen, you're already doing so much more
I'm
than
trying,
I did.
girl. I
Listen,
am trying.
shout out to you.
Yes, thank you so much. But shout out to you because you paved that for me. For real.
Thank-
So tell me about your time at Howard. You graduated in 2013, and what is the year you consider New Howard to start?
Ooh, okay. So this is funny because when I got to Howard, my fall year was 2009. And so like I know people are probably like, "Dang, Mesopotamia High." I'm like, "I guess so." But I remember when I was a freshman, because it was after '08, there were upperclassmen above me who said I was New
Of
Howard
course, they always
because they
do.
were like, if you weren't here before or during the time Obama was inaugurated the first time, you're New Howard.
Are you kidding me?
But no, I disagree. I do think I do think I do think like sort of the Obama election as kind of like
Like
the second.
the end of the
Yeah,
second.
the end of the second. Like not even the election, but the end of his second term, just because it was a very different DC.
Mm.
Like,
Okay, I can see that.
yeah, like the thing you would always hear is that each um presidential administration, like their staffers, the people around, have a different neighborhood. And so, I think for the George Bush years, it was Glover Park. Clinton, it was Adams Morgan. And the Obama years, it was Shaw and Howard U Street.
Really?
Like it was like the amount, like when I was in school, it was a food desert. Like that Whole Foods by the towers.
Shaw was?
Yes, like we had to, in order to get to a grocery store, we would either take the metro to Columbia Heights and go to that giant,
Mm-hmm.
or like I lived in Meridian.
Oh wow, that's not even there
I
anymore.
know, and the fact that people are paying luxury money to live in those places, I'm like, the things these walls have
Girl.
seen,
Oh my
you would not be paying all this
gosh.
money. But there was a shuttle, and so we would take the shuttle to the Harris Teeter in Columbia Heights, and those were the closest grocery stores, unless you wanted to pay a bunch of money to go to the Mom's Organic on 14th. Like there was no Trader Joe's,
There was no
Whole
Ho Chi?
Foods. We had Ho Chi.
Okay.
Now we had things like Ho Chi. We had like Busboys and Poets was still there.
Oh,
But it was just like
wow.
it was a different time. Like the gentrification was happening, but it hit a little different.
Mhm.
Like it was just, and also we had social media, but like Instagram came out like my senior year.
What?
So it was like a totally different, like we had
Yes.
Twitter.
Mhm.
Like there were like, I remember, I won't say what the name of it was because I think it still exists. And it's
Uh-oh.
very gossipy about people who I think are now like, we are all professional adults, but like there were things like that. But like it was a different time.
No
It was a very
way.
different time.
So, but okay, well, did you enjoy your time at Howard?
Oh my gosh, I had a great time.
Okay.
I had a great time. I joke, like I joke that like going to Howard is like a quarter of my personality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably because I'm still in the DC area. But I don't know. I had a great time, made a lot of friends. It did for me what I needed it to do. Like
Mhm.
I had the experiences I needed to help me become a fully fledged adult and a real person.
Amen.
Cause I think of like college, it's like, oh, you learn stuff, oh, career. But I really think of it as training wheels for adulthood.
Facts.
Because I just think about the fact that like when I was 18, my frontal lobe was not developed. I had no business being able to like run in the streets. So it just created like a little safe place to run the streets with a bunch of other 18-year-olds who don't know what
Yes.
they're doing.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, and we also have a place to go to and a little community.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's what I was just telling Ginger yesterday. Like Howard, like it was hard going through it, but I'm so grateful. I am so grateful.
Yeah,
I
it'll
went
teach
to
you how
Howard
to
University.
finesse.
Yeah,
I
okay.
mean, there's some that A building.
Oh
I
my
still have
gosh.
PTSD. But, I wouldn't trade it for the world, would
At
not
all.
trade the experience I had for anything.
At all. So, do you feel like Howard prepared you to be a professional journalist?
I do. I do because of, like, the amount of hustle.
Mhm.
Um, you know, Compared to a lot of HBCUs, Howard does have money and resources,
Yeah.
but in general, it maybe doesn't have as many resources as, a lot of PWIs. And so you learn sort of how to make things happen. How to like, okay, well, there's only X amount of cameras available to go shoot this story and I need to do it for credits. Like, okay, who does have the camera?
You
How can
gotta
we
be
coordinate? Like,
resourceful.
can I shoot your story and you'll shoot mine? Or
Yep.
like, I remember just being like, all right, shooting on a phone, that
Yep.
seems what? Like it was so foreign the idea of shooting on a phone, but it's just like if you have a deadline to meet,
You gotta do what you
you're
gotta
gonna you're
do.
gonna do what you gotta do. And so like just learning, especially for breaking news,
Mhm.
learning like, okay, I know what to do if I'm in a pinch because I've been in a pinch before.
Yeah, I think it definitely brings out your resourcefulness, your collaborating nature.
Yes.
Like you gotta do what you gotta do at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So you got into journalism at age 15. What
Yeah.
really sparked that for you?
Wow. First of all, you are a good journalist. You have done your research.
Shout out to her. We
I
collaborated
know.
on
I was like,
research.
ooh, okay. Y'all did your Googles. That's
Yes,
great.
did.
So I lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico from the time I was 12 to when I graduated from high school. Um, and it was a really big culture shock to me because before that I'd been in like predominantly black neighborhoods, predominantly
Mm,
black schools,
mhm.
and it wasn't the first time where I was often the only one or outnumbered, but it was also just like you know how middle school is. It's such a trying time, like all these emotions, you're just kind of figuring a lot
Yeah.
out about yourself. You're learning like how to exist like as a person.
Mhm.
Um and so it was difficult. And then when I was 15, I got the opportunity to start volunteering at my local public NPR station with an
Oh.
organization that still exists called Generation Justice. And we would do shows once a week. And so it would be a bunch of teenagers, like ages 13 to 18. And we would host, produce, engineer, like pick the music. We were in control of the radio for an hour. And so that's when I realized, like, oh, I really like doing this. And also, we would occasionally go out into the field, get field tape. And I remember going around interviewing people. And I was like, oh my gosh, people answer my questions when I have a
Mhm.
microphone.
Mhm.
And I'm a very nosy person. I think that's what anyone who's a journalist has going
That
on.
is so true. That is our common thread.
Yeah, it's just like nosy. Like, I want to be in
I'm
people's
just curious.
business.
Yeah, I just want to know.
And when you're a journalist, you get paid to be in people's
Okay.
business. And people are like,
Facts.
"Oh, could I give you money to be in someone's business?
Yes.
Would you like to tell some people's business?" I'm like,
Yes.
"Absolutely. Yes." And so
Absolutely.
that was the moment where I was like, "Okay, I think this is what I want to do."
Mm. So I really like that through your journalism, like you taking such an approach that is so like you focus on the people, like Relisha Rudd, for example. Can you tell me a little bit how you got into researching missing women, black women in DC?
Yeah. So that story um is one that's really special to me. I told Relisha's story on this podcast I hosted a while ago called Through the Cracks. And I think sort of at the forefront of everything, I think about black girls and black women because I think the way you can determine how effective something is, how empathetic people are, so many things. You do it by seeing how the most marginalized people are treated, and oftentimes that's black girls and women because,
Mhm.
we sit at this intersection, there's gender and there's race, and there are all these other things on top of it. There can be class, there can be, sexuality, all these different things. And I think looking at the way black women and girls are or aren't treated is a really good way of like assessing, okay, where are we in society? How do we treat people who often go by the wayside?
Mm, So what was the most jarring thing that you've learned while doing that research?
Yeah.
What really shocked you?
I think one of the things that shocked me most is, and it's sort of the thesis of that project, like the city released a report and said that there was no way to prevent
Mm.
Relisha Rudd's disappearance.
Mm.
And that really made me, that was sort of kind of what made me want to do the series because I'm like, what do you mean? Like anything's preventable. And just it opened my eyes to, we hope that first and foremost, families are kind of the first safety net, but that isn't always the case because of a variety of circumstances. And so we create these social safety nets um, to sort of, catch people when they fall. And even when they fall, through that, it really opened my eyes to the fact that like a lot of us aren't even given a chance
Mm.
to begin with.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
How did that experience help you grow as a professional?
That's a really good question. Um, it really helped open my eyes to the idea of trauma informed reporting.
Mm.
Like this idea of, you could be in a situation where you're talking to someone literally on their worst day or talking to someone about the worst experience they've ever had in their life. And you want to tell that story because you could help prevent it for someone else, or it can shed light or make change for the person you're talking to. But at the same time, you don't want to re traumatize them.
Mhm.
And just being conscious of that really, I think, just shifted the way that I do reporting. And also, it was a story that I began reporting out right before the pandemic. And I remember when we first started reporting, I talked to Relisha's grandmother and then I talked to her father all in the same day because we were initially concerned. We were like, you know what, this is our one chance to get tape. We don't know if we'll be able to follow up. Fortunately, we were. Um, but those are two people who have been through a lot. And even hearing their stories had an emotional impact on me. Like I remember getting home from work that day and just feeling, and I got home pretty late because I think we did one interview at like noon and then the other we did around 5. So I didn't get home till like 8 or 9 that evening. And I remember just feeling so exhausted both physically and emotionally.
Mm.
And so this idea of like, yeah, you're going out, you're telling the story and yeah, it didn't happen to you, but how are you caring for yourself as you're doing these things? Like people who are journalists exposed to I mean, I even think of breaking news, like just the most traumatic, upsetting things. And it's this idea of like, okay, yes, and you're doing the story, but you're also a person. So
Yeah.
how are you caring for yourself while you're doing that reporting?
Yeah, that's true. Cause how we just talked about like being nosy is a part of being a journalist. I
Yeah.
also think like being empathetic is a part of being a journalist.
Yeah, empathy is so important.
Hopefully, if you're a good
Yeah,
journalist.
and for so long, like, especially even when, I was in school and probably when you were in school too, it was this idea of like, like objective,
Right,
like you
right,
have
right,
to step away.
right.
And I don't know that objectivity is real or possible. I think we can be fair. But I think we all have lived experiences and we bring those lived experiences to everything we do. And so I think sort of the job of news media, it's like, okay, well, can we get as many people with as many different lived experiences
Mhm.
involved so we have as few blind spots as possible versus trying to be like, I'm a robot. I don't know. It's like,
Right.
no, like you're a person. These are people. Talk to them like people. Treat them like people. Talk about these things like you're a person.
I remember that used to Professor Walker. I used to be like, how am I supposed to detach my personal feelings and just tell the facts? I'm like, I have feelings on it. Like, I don't understand how this is possible or why we even need to do this. So, you said that you had to come up with methods to talk to these people without re traumatizing them.
Mhm.
What did those methods look like?
Yeah, I think especially for people who aren't used to being interviewed, like if you're talking to a politician, it's kind of like, all
Yeah.
right, you know the deal, you know what it
Right.
is. And also, you're probably going to dance around the question that I'm
Mm-hmm.
about to ask you. And so I'm going to have to try to pin you
Yeah,
down.
they follow scripts.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard to get them to not.
Mm-hmm.
But for people who aren't used to it, like before an interview, I'll sit down and I'll say, okay, well, here's what we're going to talk about. Like, I don't do gotchas. I don't believe in gotchas. They're not fun. They don't make me feel good. I don't know. I don't think they add anything. So I just let people know, like, even things as basic as, like, okay, This is what off the record means. This is what
Mm-hmm.
on the record means. This is what on background means. For that to happen, both of us need to agree to it. Like, if you need to take a break, let me know and we can take a break. Or if there's something you don't want to talk about, this is an active conversation. You can actually say, like, that makes me uncomfortable. That's not something I want to share, whatever, whatever. Like, if you need to take like 5 minutes, do so. If you want to say, like, hey, whatever, whatever, like, that's fine. Just really laying out sort of how interviews work, especially for people who maybe don't understand how they work because they're not
Right.
interviewed that often.
Right. I like that. So you just mentioned politics, and now you have your own show. You're a host of a show on Vox, The
Yeah.
Weeds. I love that for you. So tell me how you got into this host position.
Oh my gosh. That's a very funny story.
Tell me.
That's a
I
very
love
funny story.
stories.
So, before I worked on The Weeds and I worked at Vox, I was a senior producer at the NPR program 1A produced at WAMU. And loved it, but I eventually applied and got a senior producer job at Vox, and the plan was to work on new podcasts, like develop new things. And eventually they were like, oh well, this is great, but we have this other podcast. The original hosts like stepped away. They went on to new opportunities, new exciting things, and there was like this sort of changing cast of various hosts, and they asked me to fill in, and I was like, sure, and did that for a little bit, and then ultimately they asked me to do it full time, and
Oh, wow.
I did, and so it had a really awesome way of working out.
Do you love it?
I do. I really like hosting. I really like I like being able to be a proxy for the audience. And like that's what I think of hosting as being a lot of the time. It's the opportunity for the audience to ask questions and get answers that they want, but you're their proxy. So I try to, whenever I'm doing it, I try to put myself in the shoes of like, okay, what's something our listener would want to know, or what's a deep dive they would want to take, and that's how I kind of approach it.
Yeah, and I appreciate the way that you share your news and your stories because it's accessible. Like if I tune into a news station and they're using all these big words and throwing all these words I never heard of around, I'm like, I can't even understand what you all are talking about, but I think yours is very understandable. So I appreciate how you report.
Thanks.
I want to know we're in an election year.
Ooh, yeah, we sure are.
We sure are. What are some of the trends that you are seeing with millennials and Gen Z?
Ooh, as far as like, this is interesting. I think some things that I have keeping my eye on, especially with younger voters. I'm thinking, are young voters going to show up? Because there seems to be a lot of dissatisfaction with both candidates.
Yep.
And I do think young voters are going to show up, but I also think that we may see this rise in people sort of ignoring the top of the ballot. And so I'm interested to see how that's playing out. I think also the role of social media is really interesting. In particular, things like TikTok, like it's just shifted. And really, AI is what I'm interested in. Because I don't know, you would kind of think like, oh, with younger voters, like people who are Gen Z, people who are millennials, will be more like media literate. We'll be able to say like, oh, that's fake. But one, it's getting really good. And two, one, it's getting really good. And two, like the media literacy isn't as great as it used to be. So that's something to keep an eye on. As far as issues, I think people think of millennials and Gen Z as being like teenagers and in their 20s. But it's like the oldest millennials are in their 40s. The oldest of Gen Z will be 30 fairly soon.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah. And let me tell you, being in your 30s is lit. And also, like, you guys probably won't have a global pandemic happen to your 30th birthday party. So,
Okay. I thought you were going to give me a butt there.
No, being in your 30s is great. Wanting to throw a big party and then there being a global pandemic is not.
Yeah.
But our issues are changing. Like, we're thinking about student loans. We're thinking about houses. We're thinking about, like, how much is childcare? Like, it's funny because I have friends with kids. I'm like, but you're so young, and it's like, girl, I'm 33. I'm like, oh yeah,
Literally.
I guess we are that kind of grown.
We are that age now. Like I get shocked when my friends are pregnant and getting married. I'm like, hold on.
I was like, y'all doing this on purpose?
Literally.
And it's like, oh wait, no,
Wait
you're
a
right.
second.
You're
Slow
right.
down.
Yeah.
Let me catch up a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what I know about Gen Z though is they don't play. Like they will boycott, they will ban like Starbucks. You know, they do not play.
Gen Z does not play.
Yeah. So why do you think there is the amount of misinformation? Is it TikTok? Like what's going on here? Are they following what they hear on social media and not reading the news? Like what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think you know, have you seen that video of Megan Thee Stallion where she's like, big letters, bold background? Don't read that. Big letters, bold background, where she was basically talking about like various like there is this thing, and I don't know why it is, although I kind of do, where if someone sees a graphic with big letters on it, people will be like, I believe that's true. And it's like, oh, that's not. And there are times I have to like check myself. Like I forget who it was. Was it Cheryl Lynn? There was like this fake Twitter account for like this older singer, Cheryl Lynn. And it turned out it was fake. And I was like, oh, I fell for that. Media literacy test failed.
Speaking of falling for Kate Middleton, AI.
Child.
Let's get into it. Like, what are your thoughts on this subject? What's going on there?
Child, it's okay. So I think it's just like, I think the palace is not good at PR because it's like, it's really sad. Like, she has cancer, like she needed time to heal, like all of these things. But just the way the palace PR handled it was very odd. But I think kind of how Buckingham Palace or Kensington or the firm or whatever it is, they like in general follow things, like they do things very oddly. I remember I was listening to this episode of there's this podcast, it's called You're Wrong About, and they did like a 3 or 4 parter about Princess Diana. And one of the podcasters raised this point that for the royal family, they're about 30 years behind in everything. So when it was the 80s, it was like it was the 1950s for them. And now it's the 2020s. So what is this? So it's like the 90s for them right now is what they're living in.
I could see that.
So it's just like, it created like a vacuum of like mystery and weirdness. And I don't know, whenever things happen, I'm just like, okay, just address it head on. Just say the thing. Just do the thing.
Yeah.
But it was handled so weirdly.
Poorly.
Yeah.
So what do you think about AI? Do you use it?
No, I'm scared of ChatGPT. I don't want to help it.
Girl, I use ChatGPT.
Everyone does. Like it could, like I know I could like go into ChatGPT right now, tell them what's in my refrigerator, and it will give me meals for the week.
Ooh, I need to use it for
No,
that.
it'll do that. Tell them exactly. Or I've seen people do this online. I haven't done it. But if you tell them like, these are my dietary restrictions, this is how much money I want to spend, like make a menu and grocery list for me, they'll do it.
I need to do that.
They'll do it. But I'm scared.
Of what? You're scared it's going to have your information?
Not even that, but I'm like, do I want to help it?
Oh. You know what I think? I'm like, well, they got my information anyway.
I mean,
Might
that's
as well
valid.
just
But the thing is, there's so
use
many
it.
AI things. Like, I got an Apple Home, and I be telling Siri all my business. Not all my
Really?
business.
Oh, can she just hear something?
Probably. I mean, probably. Like, that's the thing. I think if you have one of these things in your home, it is listening. And maybe that's paranoia. Maybe that's like
No, I
fake
think it-
news. But like, that's the assumption
Yeah.
I live under. But I also recognize that in general, we're constantly being surveilled. Like, there are probably so many cameras that picked me up on my way even here.
And
you
you
know?
get many tickets in the mail. Well, I know I do.
Yeah, but even like walking to the bakery across the street or like down to the CVS, there are cameras everywhere. There are things everywhere. And so it's like a little bit like, I don't know. I often wonder what to think because it's like, okay, no matter what, I'm kind of being surveilled. And so, or like even, I don't know, like I have global entry and they had to take my fingerprints for that.
Okay, because when I go to the airport, they scan my eyeballs.
Yeah,
I'm
they're like,
this is
show me
so
your face.
I
And it's
could
like, what?
never commit a crime.
At all.
Like, I don't want to, but I could never. I would get caught right away.
Yeah, and on one hand, like AI is doing sort of these amazing things, but then I think there's another side to it. Like I think of, you know, deep fakes. Like being able
That's
to like
scary.
create a cool photo of something is really cool. Like that's cool. Like being able to talk to things, like the technology is cool. But then there's like this other side, and regulation is so far behind. Like it can't keep up. And then the people who are in office, you know, they're like our parents' age or older.
Right.
And I don't know if you've ever had to help like your mom with an
Yep.
iPad,
Yep.
but that can be a very stressful
How do I
situation.
copy and paste? I'm like, oh
It's
Lord.
like, girl, like I
You
remember
gotta start
I'm
from
just
the
like,
bottom.
oh my gosh. And it can be, and so like those are the people regulating it, and also the companies are figuring out. So it's a lot at once. I think there's some good uses, but sometimes I'm like, oh, this is scary.
This is
But then
scary.
I recognize that maybe that's me being like stubborn and behind the times and like maybe even a bit of a Luddite, and I need to let it go. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like maybe we just need to learn how to use it. And then
Yeah.
once we learn its capabilities, then we will. Because I'm scared of it too. Like deepfakes, it scares me. But speaking of deepfakes, we have the same people on the ballot from 2020. So
Deja vu.
Yes. What are the main differences between 2020 and 2024 for you?
Oh man. I think as far as like watching the political landscape,
Yes.
I mean, the pandemic was such a big major factor, and I think that's why we had such large turnout. Like everyone was at home, so everyone sort of had to be paying attention.
Yep.
And also just like, I don't know, there was more going on. I think what's interesting is like for instance, I mean, whoever the incumbent is kind of getting like more TV time, more whatever time. And so I think in a way that honestly hurt Trump quite a bit because he was constantly on TV and people were constantly like scrutinizing what he was saying. And you know, he still has the same sort of tone, says the same sort of things. There are things that he's, you know, calmed down on as far as rhetoric goes. I'm not sure if the same can be said for policy, but like, you know, before he was fairly new to this and he's not anymore. Like he now has more of a machine behind him. And so I think that's playing a role in his favorability and unfavorability, just the amount of like there was also a time where you would turn on the news and organizations would cover his rallies uninterrupted just for like however long he talked, and that doesn't happen anymore. Like you rarely see a rally, let alone one going on uninterrupted. And so I think that's stuff that will change as the election cycle continues. And there are so many, like it's so hard for me to prognosticate because I just think of all of the things that could happen. Like even looking at polling numbers, like everyone's pointing at the polling, like, oh, is Biden in trouble? Like, oh, what's gonna happen? And I just feel like it's too early to tell either way. And I realize that's like not fun and not what we really do. But I'm like, there are court cases, there are health scares, there are any number of things. Like there's conflicts, there's economy. Like who knows what could happen? Like something could happen tomorrow that changes the entire trajectory of the election, let alone like an October surprise type of moment. So it's hard to say, but I think the biggest difference is probably like people are paying attention, but a little less so. And I think because we're not trapped in our homes the way we were 4 years ago, which is wild that it was 4 years ago.
Isn't that crazy?
It feels like yesterday.
Girl. Like I don't know, I'm still uncomfortable to be in large crowds without a mask.
Oh,
Especially because people didn't learn their lesson. Coughing, sneeze, like come on, go
if
home.
I'm at the airport
Oh yeah.
or the metro, especially cold and flu season, I am now like a cold and flu season mask girly.
You have
'Cause
to.
it makes sense.
It makes sense.
It makes sense. Like I don't want to get even if it's not COVID, I don't want to get a cold.
I don't want to get sick.
I don't want to get the flu. People stay home when they're sick now, which is nice because people used to not do that.
Hardly.
Listen, I used to be terrible about that. I was like, I need to work no matter what. And then the pandemic happened and I was like, no, I don't.
No, I don't. Yeah, I wear them on the plane still because I'm just like, we're in a tube of. I've
It's so
become
many
a real
people.
germaphobe lately.
But also I like it. I also like carrying a mask because like, what if I'm somewhere and it smells bad and I can just be like,
be in an Uber, stinky Uber, put on a
just
mask.
put it on. You out in public, someone farts near you, you just, and I'm like, I like having this option.
Yes, me too. But I think another thing that we're seeing that's different is I don't see Trump on Twitter every time I open Twitter.
Yeah.
And I love seeing you. And you have an episode, but you were talking about Twitter's dying. policing women's bodies is keeping it alive. Tell us
Oh,
what you
yeah. Yeah.
Let's
So
get
I
into
wrote up
that.
this piece. It was shortly after, and wow, how that story has shifted. Although not too much. So it was around the time that Keke Palmer went to an Usher concert,
mean.
and the father of her child and the rest of the internet lost their mind.
Mhm.
And then around that same time, Tracy Ellis Ross, I don't even know what she posted. I guess she posted like a provocative either Instagram story or Instagram post, and people were losing their minds. Like, just, it was ridiculous. And it was
They
also,
should be happy. She looked good.
she looked so good. You talk about like, so I have so many pictures of her on Pinterest
Perfect.
of just like, this is like, I can tell she doesn't let people stress her out.
I know that's right.
I'm just like,
I'm working to get there.
I aspire.
Yes.
I aspire. And it was just like, it was also around the time that Elon Musk took over the platform formerly known as Twitter. Like, calling it X is so silly to me.
I can't. I just can't.
And so it was, and the thing is, there's such a major shift in how that platform works too. Like, I'm to the point where, like, on weekends, I turn off my notifications.
Really?
I like.
Okay, no wonder, because I did DM you.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
My bad, girl.
That's okay.
My bad.
Okay.
Or because I'm like, especially if like the conversation feels like it's getting toxic or not. What I'm just like, I have to remind myself like, oh, this is not a real place. And then I'll move it to the side and be like, all right, time to go touch some grass. And so it seemed like at that time, Twitter was, and I think even is a little bit not doing what it used to. Like, I look at the types of ads it has, I'm like, oh, this is wildly different than what it used to be.
Wildly.
And it seemed like the one thing that could keep the conversation going, and I think still, is talking about women, and in particular, Black women. Like, something about it just gets the people going. Like, I was even noticing it because I was like, well, let me just scroll through the timeline, see what people are saying. Because I did listen to the new Metro Boomin and Future album.
I haven't listened yet.
You haven't listened yet?
No. I'm gonna do it on my way home.
I woke up and I was like, what's all this chitter chatter?
Do you like it?
I think it's yes,
See,
I enjoy
I like
it.
Future's music.
Same.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the music.
It was good.
Like, if it was like, oh, you want to hang out with Future, I'd probably be like, that doesn't sound like.
I mean, I heard he's a trick.
But still.
I would hang out. I would hang out.
Still, I don't know if I don't know if I'm strong enough. Because I would be like, I could do it. And then I'd be like, why my stomach hurt? Now I'm sad. Why am I sad? Why did I put myself through this?
Yeah, facts.
So
Facts.
I was listening to the album. And like, even there are rumors about why the falling out happened. The alleged falling out between him and Drake happened. And people are alleging that it's about a woman. But even the way they were talking about women, like all types of B words, all types of P words, I'm like, women are people. Oh my God, please.
I just wonder who raised these people to talk about women like this. Like,
but I don't think it's even that. I think a lot of it is internet posturing.
Yes.
I think people like get online and want to impress each other. But then like the internet is not real, but it also is. It's like this weird, complicated thing. Like, and I think it's like, I also think a lot of time it's like people posturing for one another and not the audience. Like, when people post stuff like that, they're not posting it for women.
yeah.
They're posting it like it's men posting it for other men to impress one another.
But you don't ever see men acting like that in real life?
I mean, on occasion, yes. But I quickly remove myself from situations like that.
I don't know. Maybe it's the age, but these men, I'm like,
No,
what?
it's bad.
Ooh.
No, even the 30 somethings. Like, people sometimes it's like, you're literally 38.
Please.
But it's also a thing of, I don't know. I'm just in a place where I'm like, I'm just going to remove myself
Gotta go.
from this. Like, if it's either be around this or like,
Be alone.
yeah, I'm gonna pick alone.
I'll pick
Because
alone.
like, what are y'all talking about? Like, this is
Anything.
not, and I think a lot of women especially are picking the alone route a little bit more. And I think
Noticing.
that is confusing to a lot of people. It's unexpected. Like, and so it's like, I don't know, some shift is gonna have to happen.
My
but we
family
gonna
every
see.
day, Summer, I know a place where you can go meet some nice young men. Have you ever been to the I'm like, can you all leave? I am fine. I do not want these. Speaking of these men, I see you're a big Love is Blind fan.
Girl, yes.
What did you think of the reunion?
Okay, so I think it might have even been a couple seasons ago, but there was one when they attempted the live reunion. It was not good. I don't know if you saw that
I
one.
didn't see that one.
It was not good.
When was that?
It was a couple seasons ago.
Okay.
I think it was the Seattle season with
Okay.
Brett and Tiffany. And listen, I don't know who put the battery in Nick and Vanessa's back, but they brought it this reunion. Everything from Sarah Ann and Jeremy, which, all right, if that's how you choose to live, that's fine.
They're both just they deserve each other. Let's put it like that.
I can't live that way because the consequences that I know would be coming my way, but also I have the luck of a sitcom protagonist, and so maybe that's why.
They're not gonna last.
AD and Clay.
Yes, what are your thoughts on that? You know what? Can I say something controversial?
Yes.
I feel bad for Clay.
I don't, but maybe that's because I'm just a little bit older.
I really do. Like, I really do, because like everybody is dragging him for how he communicates, like for what he thinks. I'm like, babe, at least he told you. At least he said.
Okay, that's the other, because the thing, okay, so I feel multiple ways about it. Because on one hand, I think, especially when women, like I think of Risa Tisa. A lot of people like, girl, you so dumb, blah, blah, blah. And she'll be like, yeah, it wasn't smart.
Yeah.
I said that. And I think sometimes we can be mean. That being said, if I'm AD and I'm in situations again and again where this man is like, hope I don't cheat.
Right.
Hope I don't, I don't, like, he's literally saying he's not ready. And so, okay, maybe he's not pulling the plug, but like you have to be sure enough to be like, hey, sounds like you're having doubts. And this is not, like, you have to, it's like, all right, let's make different decisions.
AD, I feel bad for her too, because like clearly we saw, even when she talked to her mother, she hasn't had, where's her example? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, what's her example
and
of good love?
that's the rough part. And that's
even her mom was like, yes, I like him.
Yes, when her mom was like, oh, he's great. First of all, that's not I don't think my mom would have the reaction to Clay.
I definitely wouldn't.
But it's just like this thing of like, at the end of the day, and I think this is advice that's applicable to both of them. Like at the end of the day, you got to choose you. You have to choose you. Like you have to do what is best for you, which means you're going to have to put some boundaries in place. Putting boundaries in place means sometimes you're going to have to walk away when you don't want to, which sucks. It's not fun.
That's the hard part.
It's not a good time. It does not feel good, but it's better in the long run.
It's necessary.
They stress me out. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting Megan Fox's name.
I know. I was literally just about to ask you.
Was
about
it
her,
Amy?
I forgot her. No.
No, because Amy's in love.
What is her name? Not Sarah.
And she's with Jimmy.
Jimmy and...
It wasn't Amanda.
No.
That's so
Her
wild.
name.
That's so... But
she annoyed me so bad.
I just had never seen someone actually... Like, I hear people talk about self-sabotage, but watching, I was like, oh, that's what this is.
She was so irritating. But did you see that she said that, like, that's just the way that they made her look? Like, she was like, I went back and saw what you all were talking about, but I'm actually not that annoying.
I mean, I can, but because that's the thing with reality shows and editing too,
Yes.
which is why I don't think I would ever do one, because I'm like, what if you make me look
crazy?
I know. I was like, I literally would not be able to take it. I would not be able to take it. Like, I want to do my foolery in private and not publicly.
I may do it. I don't know. It seems kind of fun.
Did you audition for the DC season?
But you know what? Everybody kept sending it to me, and I was like, maybe I'll do it just for fun.
People kept sending it to me too, and they were like,
people
would love it. You should do it. And people were like, not decision wise, but so many people were like, AD reminds me of you, like blah blah blah.
Oh Lord.
Not with like the decision making,
but just how she acts.
Yeah, and I think also just like, oh, she dark skinned and on TV. I think that was part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was like, I'm a lady with a real job. I can't be.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, how am I gonna not work for a couple months?
But I'm like, how do I go back to being like, how do I go on? I mean, and it is possible someone will probably do it, especially in the DC season. But I don't know how I would navigate doing a season of Love is Blind and then being like, anyone want to hear me talk about the economy? Right. I feel like that'd be a hard transition.
Very unserious.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's so uncomfortable. Like, you know, when they're like about to walk out from behind the curtain to see each other for the first time?
Yeah.
That scene is always so awkward. It makes me cringe so bad. Like, I have to skip over it.
Also, like, the weddings they have are cute, but it's not what I envisioned for my wedding. I need
We'd have to have another one.
like and their weddings are cute. They're nice. And you
Yeah,
are
they're
getting a
cute.
free wedding. They're
Mhm.
expensive.
Mhm.
But it's not, if I get married, that's not what I envision for me.
No.
Like
We could have a TV wedding and then we could have a real
yeah,
one
like
if
the
it's actually gonna
venue,
be.
the amount of people. Like I'm like, this is
Mhm.
not.
Mhm.
Plus, I don't want to buy my wedding dress with a whole bunch of other people around. I
They
want me
don't
and my
know.
mama.
Hello.
And now I have to share this day with y'all?
No.
Absolutely not.
And take turns. Nope.
At
I have
all.
too much main character syndrome for that.
Exactly.
But anyway, okay, I want to leave you with this. And this is the same thing that I asked Phil. In your opinion, and I'm going to ask all journalists, so this is going to be my thing. In your opinion, what does the future of journalism look like?
That's a good one. And I think there are so many different answers because on one hand, I think the future is bright. I think there are so many people who are talented. There are so many new ways to access information. But I think we are at a crossroads because I just think of the number of layoffs we've seen. This, like, even just this year alone, like the amount of money, so I think the future is potentially bright, but I think there are going to be lots of decisions made to make it that way.
Yeah, I'm concerned. Like, what do you think about the difference of, and I know I said last one, but I had to
Oh,
follow
girl,
up.
go ahead.
What do you think about like journalism institutions versus like people like me who I do this for myself? You know what I mean? I am a I'm a journalist, but like I'm not here for an institution. I'm here for the people.
Yeah, like the independent versus like
Mhm.
institution. And I think they both have their pros and cons because the thing about not being tied to an institution is that you kind of get to set your own standards.
Exactly.
You get to do things and get into places that maybe you can't with a name attached to it because names can be great, but they also come with a lot of baggage. Like if you say I'm from XYZ publication or station, there's a good chance that people already have thoughts about it, especially if it's a
Mhm.
national news org, which can be good for you, but could also hurt you.
Mhm.
I think the thing about institutions is that they come with resources. They come with like, you know, there's a little bit more money behind it. There may be a legal team behind it. There may be these different things. So I think they both have their pros and their cons. But I think so many people are stepping out more independently. And I think that's a good thing.
I do too. I do too. Well, I really appreciate you for being here today. I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing your story. I'm glad I got to meet my cousin and get to know you a little bit.
Yes.
And I have a little gift
Oh
for
my gosh,
you.
thank you. Should I open it now?
You can if you'd
Let
like.
me see what's in here.
But
Ooh.
if y'all don't know, check out the Weeds on Vox. Where can they find it? I love your little quote in your bio.
You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. You can only play me in your podcast feed. So if you want to play me, that's where you should go.
I love that. Like, I really, really love that. I may have to take that one time. Yeah, but thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.